Hey YouTube, I'm Lisa Storm, and I'm here to talk to you today about how to create a totally immersive, open world homebrew D&D campaign for your serious players. This discussion is going to have to be broken into two videos. Today I'm going to talk about map making, and next week I'm going to talk about story writing and character creation and all that other fun stuff. Let's jump into today's video though. Maps, to me, tell the stories of the world, and they are hands down the most important foundation block in my homebrew campaigns, because everything that happens in that campaign, whether it's on a local or a global scale, is going to be affected by that world. To my right here, you will see my current crowning achievement. This is Gelangard. My entire giant open world homebrew campaign that I am running right now is all based off of this map. In the future, I will run other campaigns from this map because I spent the time to really flesh it out and really make a rich and diverse history to this world. It's really easy to write stuff for. This video is not a tutorial on how to use GIMP or Photoshop or how to make a map that looks like my example here. That is just an example. This video is about the process of building a world, starting with making the map, so you actually have your geographic world in hand to build from. You can draw your map, you can paint it, you can make it out of mosaic tiles, you can draw it on a chalkboard. It really doesn't matter. And in fact, I don't even provide maps to my players unless we're in a combat scenario or a strategically important situation. I prefer to use theater of the mind, which means that the maps I make, 90% of them are only ever seen by me. So aesthetically, it doesn't really matter what they look like. What matters to me is that I have a world that's as detailed as the level of detail I want to provide for my players. So let's start at the beginning, because beginnings are good places to start, right? How did your world begin? Was it formed by the hands of gods? Was there a Big Bang or a similar event? Is your world currently formed by a singular supercontinent, or do you have a number of smaller continents? The important thing here is that we are starting at the very highest level and building a geographic world that has a real lore to it, that we can connect to that geography, and that will make this world mean more to us and to our players. So congratulations, you have created a blob or a series of blobs that will represent the land masses of your world and probably the foundation of your campaign's quests. Now it's time to turn those blobs into actual natural features. So let's decide where your forests might be, where your mountains might be, if you have savannas, deserts, whatever. I don't have to tell you all the different types of habitat there are. But this is where you're going to start populating your continent, and try to think of it in terms of maybe how those things would be formed. Now, in my previous profession, I was an ecologist, so I have a lot of fun with this step, trying to figure out how lakes were formed and trying to figure out where transitional habitats and everything would be. You absolutely do not need to do that. You do not need to be working off of realistic ecological principles at all. The important thing is that you are putting thought into why the world is the way it is. Every step of this method is going to grow off of the step before it. And the more attention you give to details at each step, the easier the steps above it are going to be, trust me, and the stronger they're going to be, and in the end, the better your product is going to be. So now we have a world map with natural features. The next important step is to decide what races will inhabit your world, where they would originate from, and where they might settle to. So what we're doing is thinking about where settlements might be placed in your current atmosphere and what placed them there. If your dwarves originate in whatever mountain range and they decided to venture out, why did they venture out? What did they need? Where would they have found it? Settlements are almost never just randomly placed. There is usually some sort of benefit to settling there. The area may provide fertile soil, maybe a defensive advantage, maybe it's in a great spot for a port for overseas trade. Whatever the case may be, you have to decide who would settle there and why. So now we've got a pretty detailed world map, complete with settlements, natural features, and continents. The next thing that I like to work on here is roads. And the way I see it, roads can be done one of two ways. You can either kind of draw your roads in, connecting settlements, and then kind of work on the details of the placement of that road later. But I think it's really, really helpful here to start building the foundations of your social and cultural structures for your different settlements, and then build your roads around those structures. Building roads helps you connect your different settlements and to determine how they would interact, which in turn determines a lot about their social and cultural makeup. If two settlements have a lot of contact with each other and easy access, then that might affect their wealth, their language, their religion, their folklore. It could affect a lot of things. So I really think that the roads should be built based on at least a rough structure of how you want your settlements to interact or how you see them interacting. So now that we've built our world map based on intellectual, logical, or creative criteria, and it's rich with layers and development and everything, we get to do it again on the settlement scale for each of our settlements. Yay! I do actually really enjoy this. So for each settlement, the first thing you need to think about is what the size of that settlement actually is. Is this just a few houses? Is this a grand city? Is it a smaller town? What would be present in that settlement? Would it have a fortress? And if so, where would the fortress be built to give it defensive advantage? If you had merchants in the town, where would they place their stands or shops where they would expect to see the most traffic? Where does your road come into the town? Where would farmers be making their fields? All of these considerations, because we've built such a strong foundation for our universe, you will find that your settlements will come together very quickly and they will mean something to you again, because they're all based on logical criteria. They're all based on the step before them. So of course, this is D&D, so you're also going to have to map your dungeons and your hideaways and your mazes and your abandoned mine shafts and everything. But really look at these with the same principles that you applied to your settlements. Why would there be a mine in this location? If there was a troop of bandits, why would they select to place their hideout here? If you approach it with the same sort of logic that you do your settlements, you'll find that your dungeons and your adventures will come together very quickly as well. There we have it, folks. You've just created a world map that will be an amazing foundation for an open world homebrew campaign and possibly several open world homebrew campaigns. And because you are so intellectually and emotionally connected to the details of that map and of that world, it will be really hard for your players to catch you off guard or go off grid, because you know every inch of that grid. So running your next session will be a breeze. Next week, I'm going to talk about how to build a lore and histories for the peoples of your world, which is the second part and a very important part of this whole world building process. So please stay tuned for that. I look forward to seeing you next week, and until then, love ya!